Hey there. So grateful that you're with us, Bay Harbor, on this episode of The Charging Station. We're going into a kind of a new segment, but it's going to be around the same. We're talking about Defy the Odds, which we're doing with our life groups. And but really what it is This Is Us, just another opportunity to hear the story of some of your Bay Harbor worshipers that come together and brothers and sisters in the Lord. So we're looking forward to what the Lord's going to speak in this episode. And I'm with Eric Shuman. We were talking just a moment ago, and I said, I don't know what this is going to be like tonight or what's going to happen with this episode. And he said, I don't know either. So we're just going to let the Lord work. And so that's the beauty of it. I appreciate your willingness to come in.
Well, long time ago, I've always had a heart that I couldn't say no.
Yeah.
Because if it's for God.
Yeah.
That I just wanted to always have the opportunity to say, yes, I'll do this.
Well,
even though I might not really want to do it.
Yeah. Or be comfortable in doing it.
That's correct.
You know, we're leading some students through the MIP program, training them to become ministers. And that's where we start out is I want you to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's part of our journey with Christ.
Amen.
Well, let's start right there if you want to. Now, have you always felt that way, or was there a progress in you getting there?
There was a progress when I got there, years ago. I don't want to get into a whole lot of detail about it, but years ago, I was just addicted to alcohol and drugs. And one day, it'd come time for Georgianne to say, I've had enough. And I had grabbed the most important things in my life and went to the beach. And like I did, I kind of drank my sorrows away, poor pitiful me. And I was sitting there on Jekyll drinking liquor and doing drugs. And God spoke to me just like I'm speaking to you now and said, son, I just want to let you know you got the most important things out of your life when you left home. I didn't get a toothbrush, didn't get underwear, none of the essentials that I would need to live for the next day. And at that point, that's when God healed me. But then I had to learn how to live a daily life without the alcohol and drugs. That was the hardest part.
Okay, so there was a deliverance there is what I'm getting.
That's
there was
correct.
a healing that took place, but then there was the process of living without something that you had been dependent on for however long.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. I mean, we're talking, we're probably talking 20 years worth of drinking liquor and doing drugs. I mean, in high school and, working, and I was, that was a part of my life.
Yeah.
Until that, and then when I woke up that next morning, I knew God had healed me from the alcohol and drugs because it was the most sincere prayer that I ever prayed. I mean, it wasn't one of those, oh Lord, get me through tonight and I'll be better. And because God knew already that I wasn't going to do it. But that night when it come from my heart, come from some sincerity. And then I had to learn how to live life without that.
Well, we've already warned you that we didn't know where this was going, and out the gate, bam, here we are. So if you will, be upfront with us. The struggle from that night, from that time, the next morning, you're starting a new life, so to speak, without something that you've been dependent on for 20 years. Was there a big struggle, daily struggle from there?
Well, actually, my wife, Georgianne, she had been going to a church, and this pastor had been coming by frequently and seeing me. And that next morning, I went to him, and I can't even remember what his name was. I mean, this was back in the 80s or mid 80s. And I said, I need help. I need some guidance. I said, I really feel like this. And he says, well, let me tell you. He says, this is what I want you to do. And, he told me about, he really felt like I needed to do some treatment. So I've done some outpatient treatment stuff. But the main important thing he talked to me about was he just said that we were going to talk about a higher power. I just want to make sure you know that when you go there and they start talking about this, that this is God, what they're talking about. And which I knew that, but he was he laid the foundation for me to go somewhere to get some outpatient treatment. And I needed it. I really did.
Yeah. Yeah. I've spoke before at Bay Harbor that there's something that God wants to do in our life. And really it comes to defy the odds that so many times we wake up in the morning in sin before Christ, whatever. and we will have the regrets of what we did the night before. But what is it like to go to bed with an addiction, to go to bed with a struggle, to wake up the next morning still having that struggle, but then all of a sudden one day you wake up and it's not there any longer?
You know, it's almost like, and I'm not a runner, you can tell that, but you can, it's almost like if you had a 5-10 pound weight on your legs and you were running and you woke up the next morning and those 10-pound weights were gone.
Yeah.
I could just, I mean, instantaneously, I knew that God had removed the desire for the alcohol and drugs away from me. But like I said, my life was so dysfunctional that I just had to learn how to live all over again.
And that's why I think this is important to have this conversation, because sometimes we go to the altar and God has done a dynamic work in our life. There is, in your words, there is that healing, there is that deliverance, there is that freedom that's been given to us. But then we are discouraged when we go back home and we still have the same struggles, but yet God has healed us. There's a change, but we got to walk in it.
But we gotta realize that that's the start. And I think that's why they call it the rebirth. You know, I mean, because when a baby's born, he's got to learn how to walk, talk, and do all that. And that's basically really what I had to do. Because if it didn't, it consumed my life.
Yeah.
For that, you know. But praise God, after that, it was good. I would encourage anybody that's got a problem with it, you know, to get in touch with your local church. Find somewhere where you want help. You know, when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, you'll end up doing something.
Yeah, and I don't believe you'll do it before then. And it won't be lasting if it had. How many times in the 20 years had you tried to stop or do anything before? Did it cross your mind?
Yes, vaguely, because really it was words, because I was just trying to comfort my wife to satisfy the moment. Oh, baby, I'll quit tomorrow. Yeah. You know, I used to tell her I drink on people's birthday because I knew there was somebody's birthday every day. So I was just celebrating somebody's birthday. It was dysfunctional. But, you know, after I come out of that, then me and my wife had to find something that we could do together. So we started going to NASCAR races. And I rode motorcycles for years. And we were going to Charlotte, North Carolina. And I said, I want to stop at the Harley shop in Savannah. And so I stopped at the Harley shop, and there was a motorcycle there. And I told her, I said, you know, I want to get me another motorcycle. And I just seen fear just consume her because she knew what the last motorcycle predicament got me in. And so I ended up getting the motorcycle. She was still scared, so I was just trying to find somebody to ride motorcycles with that didn't drink liquor and do drugs. And I found the Christian Motorcyclists Association, and I started spending some time with them.
So, you know, I love this because we're getting into a progression of what has happened. And I've said, it's been said before, that even when it comes to struggles in our life, that there is an exchange that has to take place. One thing's removed, but then we're adding something in. Right. Sometimes what we add in is not healthy. It could be just as unhealthy as what we got rid of, but then to replace that with something that's going to give us life and purpose. Right. Sounds like that's what you were doing in your life.
It was. And it was God's design, really, in my point of view, because he was giving me an opportunity to do something, to utilize something that I loved, which was a motorcycle, and share his gospel. Where if I would have went to, when I was going to church, this is not taking any part away from a church that you're going to. Yeah. But it was a way that I could share, because to this day, I love this church, but I really feel more comfortable in a secular motorcycle situation than I do in this church. Because I can share my love for, you know, this guy's motorcycle, or, you know, and strike up a conversation and tell him what he's done in my life, because my story is something that I can share just like anybody else can share your story. What's God done in your life?
I mentioned that to you when you guys first came, about how much of a supporter I was of what you were doing, because I recognized the fact, and unknowingly, you're tying right into this right here with Benny Tate, how that God can use our past to shape our future. And yeah, for some reason, there's a connection with you with motorcycles. By the way, I have my motorcycles license, but I don't do anything with it. And but I don't even know that I can shift gears or do anything like that on a motorcycle. But to know that you are able to connect with people that I can't reach, and there's certain people that I could reach that you wouldn't be able to. Right. And that's the beauty of the gospel and about the church.
Well, just saying, and just say if you're doing a motorcycle event like I would do, and it was a ride that they were going in, there was different stops. And one of these stops would be at a bar. I could imagine what some people would see if they saw you there.
Yeah.
But if they see me there, I mean, it's a different story. I mean, for years, I didn't go around that because I was uncomfortable about being around alcohol or drugs. But I got to the place where I was just as comfortable around it as anything. And people in the motorcycle community has just eased my heart. And I said, it's something I've always had a passion about. And it's easy for me to share with them on what God done in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people can tell real quick whether you're true or just trying to say something, flatter on them with words, but God's awesome. He's done an awesome thing in my life and my family's life. And I mean, I could sit here and tell you story after story after story.
And I so appreciate your vulnerability, first of all, with all this, some of this that I've not heard before. And it gives me a different, I won't say appreciation, because the appreciation has been there, but a different view of you and your story of where you've come from. When we see you, we understand more. Not everybody has that experience, but you do. And there's a lot of other people in with this listening, that's out there, that has family members, they themselves are struggling with it. But one of the things I'm taking away right now is the fact that you're willing to go to a place to reach people right where they are, because I think that's where Jesus would be. In a recent sermon, we talked about returning to the Lord. And in that, one thing that Jesus in Luke chapter 15 was that the religious leaders were upset with him because he was associating with sinners and even eating with them. One of the most intimate things that you could do outside of a marriage was to eat with someone. And that's what he was doing. He was doing life with them. And he'd gotten to be known to where he was a friend of sinners. And it wasn't that Jesus accepted what they were doing, nor did he ignore what they were doing, but he loved them in spite of it, because he wanted them to exchange their life for a better one.
And maybe this is a wrong scenario, but I really feel like, for me, I have to earn somebody's respect to be able to share what's happened in my life. And I really think that's what, when Jesus was walking in his life, I think that's what he did. He hung around and was him. He was himself, and he earned respect. And then he got the opportunity to share what he had to share with whoever it was, And I think that's the way with us as individuals, that we just need to share. We have to earn the respect to be able to share what God's done in our life, because we can feel the stories of life with all kind of things, but what God's done in your life and what is my life, that's our testimony right there.
Yeah, it is.
And that's all I really had to do, is just share with people what my dysfunction was.
Yeah.
And what God did.
Yeah. And he did an amazing work. Looking back at Jesus and just what you said, the days of people having respect because of position is gone. Maybe when you were little, I know when I was smaller, it was still there, that if you were a preacher, a policeman, if you were any person like that in public view, there was a respect that automatically was given to someone because of the position that they held, even parents.
Right.
But now it's not the case. Respect has to be earned. And you nailed that. That's exactly where we are. For you that are listening, what a word for us to get to the place that we recognize the influence that we have, and don't think that just because you're going to go tell somebody about the gospel of Jesus Christ that they're automatically going to listen. It takes the time to cultivate and earn the respect. Now, it can happen quickly, or it can happen over a season of time. But either way, we got to earn it. It's got to be earned.
I can remember one time many years ago, I'd got a call about 2:00 in the morning, and this guy had been in a motorcycle wreck, and it was his mom reaching out to the Christian Motorcycle Association to go see her son in the hospital because he had gotten a wreck that night. He got tore up pretty bad. And this was the first time that I'd ever stepped out. And I mean, as far as going to the hospital and talking to someone that I had never ever seen, but the relief and the excitement and the volatility of what happened after I left, it was, and I say that only to say that if we just take that step, that leap of faith, that one step, and just say, hey, I want to share with you what happened in my life, or what can I do to help you get closer to God? We got to be able to take that step and not have fear. I mean, fear's good sometimes, don't get me wrong, but we got to be able to have the ability to walk with God.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like when you say that you try not to say no to the things of God, that it's not just in this episode, but it's also in experiences like that. So this has been a part of your life ever since that there's been a deliverance and a change and transformation that's happened.
I learned a long time ago that you can't keep what you don't give away.
Okay, say that again. Say that again.
I said, you can't keep what you don't give away. You know, so my sobriety, I have to give it away. I have to share that or I'll lose it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just like our Christianity, our walk with Christ. If I don't share that, I have the opportunity to lose it.
Yeah.
And
because we oftentimes would take it for granted.
We do. I mean, you know, it was a blessing to wake up this morning.
Yeah.
One eye was a little closed, but what a blessing though, you know, and it's a blessing to, and I know I'm not necessarily trying to talk about Bay Harbor, but it's a blessing to come to this church, you know, many years ago. And I don't know exactly how long we've been coming here. We started becoming because of my granddaughter.
Yeah. Because
she just asked us, she said, Nana, will you just start coming to my church? And we said, sure. We didn't have a problem where we were going. We just said, well, okay, we will. And then there again, it's our travels and our walk with Christ that's led us there. And it's so awesome to be here because people are people here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're trying to defy the odds.
Yeah.
In a daily basis.
We are, and we're seeing God move in incredible ways in a lot of people's lives. And even though we have different stories, it's still the same Jesus. It's still the same change. It's still the same salvation. And so that connects us on a whole different level because of what he's done in our lives. And I know that since that time and however long that's been in the 80s, that's been a minute or two that you've been really committed to serving the Lord. There's been ups and there's been downs. There's been experiences and good ones and not so good ones, but yet you've remained faithful and you've remained true because it sounds to me like you haven't forgotten where you've been.
There you go. That's right. I have to remember where I came from.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing for me.
Well, if you could, we're running close on time with this, but I'm going to hit you with a double-sided question, okay? What would you say to someone, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a single person that just keeps making excuses within their own mind that says, well, I'm going to stop this tomorrow, or I'm going to be better next time, or I'm going to change this. What would you say to that person?
Well, I would first, and I'm only going by me, first I would have to come to the realization that I really want to quit, and not one of those, well, get me through the, I messed up tonight, Lord, get me through tonight, and then tomorrow will just be another day.
Yeah.
I mean, because I don't know how many times I did that.
Yeah.
And because it had to come from my heart, and I had to, the prayer had to be sincere.
Mm-hmm.
And just with a sincere heart, just ask God. There's no doubt in my mind. I don't care who you are or whatever kind of dysfunction you're in. If you ask God and are sincere about it, he will free you from whatever it is.
Mm.
But you have to be sincere. It just can't be words.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Well, you were blessed with a wonderful wife who was patient with you through that process. There's no question about that.
You know, John, I don't want to cut you short on that, but you're absolutely right. There's one thing that I know for certain in my life is that God sent her to me.
Yeah.
I know when I got back to the house, she hated me. I mean, and she did. And there was many, many nights that I spent on the couch with her in the bed, mad with God because she had already pre-planned the separation or whatever. She didn't work through the process of this, but she was angry because, but God done a work with me just being willing to come back, sleep on the couch for quite some time, and just because she had to see that I was sincere. Like I was saying about the prayer.
That's understandable.
Because she had seen me time and time again come home all bent out of shape. And I said, well, I'll start all over again tomorrow.
Yeah. And maybe that's something for someone, because you can't get to a place where you expect instant changes. Yeah, God's done the work, but there's still a process that's got to work out. People have to be, the trust had to be reestablished.
That's right. That is, the kid was barely said very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was completely lost,
Yep.
you know, but God just restored that gradually. And then nowadays people see us and they wonder how in the world are we still married? Because we carry on with each other one time, but that's the most sincere. We cut and we carry on and we have a good time, and I give her a hard time and she gives me a hard time, but we know that we're right where God wants us to be within our relationship with one another.
Yeah. And that has to be because of the relationship with him.
Because we
defied the odds.
Defied the odds.
Well, that answers my second question right there, because it was going to be, what would you say to someone to a family member that's doing that? And it is to be patient, to continue to trust in God for his promises, and to follow the process, because God is working and he's moving. He's working and he's moving in your life. He's working and he's moving in your family. We believe that. And we believe that you can defy the odds through him, no matter if it's something for yourself personally or for a family member or a loved one that you're believing God for. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.